Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I am going to be talking about g.l.o.w Season 3, Episode 6. It's called Outward Bound. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. And of course, thank you to our patron, Tim Neal, who sponsors these g.l.o.w reviews, so thank you to him. Apologies for the gap between 5 and 6. The main reason for that, there was a little bit of a gap anyway, but the reason why it was so big is because I was sick last week, and was sick almost the whole week. And so much didn't get done that was supposed to get done, mainly which was g.l.o.w. Anything that I usually do on my own was just out. So, but here we are, episode 6, and this is a longer episode, which has only the girls in it, only the wrestlers, as they go out to a national park, and, go around, out to the canyons outside Vegas, and go hiking and camping and sort of try to bond they do. So honestly, it's a really solid episode, and I think there's a real turning point here, I think, in the show, where I think some people are losing interest and are getting away from the show because it is getting away from the fun of the wrestling show. And for me, one of the big strengths of this series was always the more serious stories it did with the characters. I loved that it mixed those things, and while I do love the fun of the wrestling stuff, last episode was great for that. This episode, was the opposite strengths. It was all of the character drama, it was character arcs, it was quite touching in places. So I'll tackle this kind of by plot line, more or less, as I go, just trying to kind of keep it more succinct. But I think first of all, I want to talk about Jenni and Melrose, because I think, I commended it last episode for Jenni, at least, the show acknowledging and showing Jenni react to Melrose's impression of her fortune cookie character and how that was problematic, and I was glad that it showed Jenni reacting to it and not being happy. I am thrilled that it took it further with this episode and actually made a bigger deal out of it and said, no, that was not okay, Jenni's not happy about it, and she starts the episode pissed at Melrose, and Melrose is trying to make small talk with her and just have fun. It's not working, she's in a bad mood, and then when she tries to talk to her one-on-one, Jenni finally kind of opens up and says, you did this impression, and Melrose tries to well, I wasn't doing the racist thing, I was doing an impression of you doing the racist thing, and she's like, it doesn't matter, but you're white. It's like, yeah, but I'm not just any random white girl, I'm your friend, and she's like, you just don't get it. And I love that she tries to kind of gloss over, because Melrose's ultimate thing in this scene when they're sitting up in the rocks is that, can we not just drink some wine and forget about this? And I love that Jenni does not give in to that. She does not just let her away with it. She's like, no, that's not going to work. She just storms off. And I like that. I like that it's treated with some severity that doesn't, it doesn't just feel like she gets the easy cop out. And that's kind of nice. But, and it all kind of bubbles up to this scene where it's this campfire. Not all the girls are there. A few of them are still out hiking, but most of them are there. Yeah, Ruth and Debbie, Sheila and Vicky are away still, but they're out, and Melrose is like, oh, let's make this a bit of a Passover, and neatly, one of the first things she says to Jenni actually in the episode, she's complaining about her mum hosting Passovers, so it actually does a really good job of reminding us she's Jewish right early on. So then it's like, oh, let's make this a Seder, and they're doing, and there's a couple of jokes about what a Seder is, and she basically spends it complaining about her family and all the things they do, and the complaints that her mum has, and all the chaos that comes when they do Seders and things like that. And what's really, really neat about this is that, Jenni gets kind of frustrated and is going to leave and go to bed, and Melrose is trying to open up and just be fun with everyone, and sort of share a bit of her culture, but in a really kind of, goofy kind of way. And Jenni says, you're just talking about yourself, this is not just about you. And it gets kind of emotional. Melrose talks about her father, who will not live in a house without a basement in case they have to hide again. And we hear about family members who died in concentration camps, and it gets very real very quickly. And she's kind of crying as she's saying this, and it's a very stark scene for Melrose, because Melrose, we never see get emotional. Melrose is always jovial and cracking jokes, and she's always kind of been this party girl, and she's never really had a scene like this, at least not that I remember. And it really kind of sticks. And what's beautiful about this scene is that, sort of talking about, because she admits that she kind of talks about all this fun stuff to kind of hide the sort of nastier truth behind it, and why it's important that she comes from a Jewish family and what that really means. And obviously it ties in to Jenni, who then starts opening up about her family's past and about how she came to the country hidden on a plane, and she was lucky because her dad knew someone at the embassy, and that's how they got out, and a lot of her family are dead. And she references the killing fields, and this made me feel, one, really guilty, because I'm really not that familiar with what she's talking about. I never learned about this particular incident in school. I did a quick look on Wikipedia to just kind of like get a sense of it. It seems very brutal, and it's a shame I don't know more about it. But they kind of bond over this, and and Melrose is like, I had no idea, and she goes up and makes a point of hugging her, and then it turns into a group hug, and it's a really good scene. It's a really good scene where they're sharing their stories. And a lot of this episode, there's another little scene where one of the biddies and Arthur permanently swap costumes, characters rather, because Arthur doesn't want to be the terrorist character for obvious reasons. And it's like this episode is really sort of getting some of this stuff out in the open and really dealing with some big issues which aren't addressed. And I think I'm curious to see, like, given that Bash and that were like just kind of let the previous thing go from what we saw. I mean, maybe he'll try and like fight this afterwards. Maybe he will fight this idea of some of them changing characters and not or Jenni not being fortune cookie anymore. But I feel like it is finally kind of addressing this stuff. Like, they've kind of put up with it up until this point, and it's reached this bubbling point. It's reached this point where Jenni just can't live with this anymore. And she even talks about how the casino they're in, there's white women walking around pretending to be geishas, and is this idea of the appropriation of the culture and all that stuff. And it gets to the truth behind the thing, because it's something that they don't talk about a lot, because they don't want to just bring it up all the time. Maybe they want to try and forget some of this stuff a lot of time, because it's just too hard to constantly be thinking about it. It's too much. And it's this great scene where they get it out in the open, and they relate because of really horrible sort of tragedies that their culture comes from. And it's a really kind of heartbreaking little scene. It's really well acted, and everyone else, coming in for the hug is really sweet. So, not really good. Like, when I was saying last episode that I was glad they acknowledged Jenni kind of like being aware of this impression that was happening, I never thought that we were going to go this far with it in the next one. So I applaud it. So that was that. Ruth and Debbie get lost hiking while Sheila and Vicky kind of like get separated from them. Sheila has a moment with a wolf where she goes on all fours, and it's this like spiritual moment, but the wolf kind of turns and walks away, and it kind of leaves Sheila feeling like, I'm not really a wolf. Like, that's what the scene feels like. That's the moment it feels like. Is she looks kind of like, just her soul looks destroyed when the wolf sort of turns and walks away from her. And it builds up to something that we've been kind of working to for the season, where Sheila doesn't feel so well and is sort of like helped back to the camp. But in the middle of the night, when Ruth is reading Justine's script, which turns out is really good, Sam left it for at the start of the episode. We don't see him, but we see the script being left there, and she's reading this, and Sheila comes out and throws her pelt and her wig in the fire. And I love the reaction actually from Ruth here. Like, she's just laughing in joy, and it's just kind of like, oh, way to go, Sheila. Like, Sheila just says, it's holding me back. There's so many things I want to do, and this is holding me back. And it's a really good personal journey for her, because it's not so much that you have to change who you are necessarily, but this is a personal choice for Sheila, that she realized that if she really wants the things she wants in life, that this thing that she's clinging to is actually getting in the way of that. And she makes that, this is the sort of thing where if someone else says you have to just drop this whole thing, it's not right coming from someone else, but as a personal choice, it's very kind of a very strong showing from her. So, it's this very kind of uplifting moment of freedom, of realizing that something's holding her down, and this is her breaking away from it. So it's really good. The moment when she gets up in the morning and wants breakfast, and her blonde hair's down, and everyone's just kind of reacting to it. It's great. This team feel kind of like a family now. It feels like this unit, and with all its ups and downs and different like kind of like friendships sort of interspersed throughout that, and some people who don't like each other that much. But and then Ruth and Debbie's plot is they get lost, and Debbie said at the end of the last episode that she's not staying around. She's going to go back and be with her son. And early on in the episode, Ruth says, like, no, just bring your son here. You know, yeah, you may like the bright lights, blah blah blah. And she's like, oh, I don't know. Like, and she's going to leave. And when they eventually sit down and like sort of talk about what she's going through and what she's feeling, she's like, well, I'm 32 and I fought to be a producer, but Bash just made it meaningless, and like, this is what my career amounts to, and that kind of thing. And it's just her really struggling with this idea that she does kind of want to have this career still, but she's just not well, like being away from her son is just too hard. And it pays off, of course, afterwards when she eventually speaks to Tammy, which is notable. I love that it ends with her, like this little story for Debbie in making the choice that maybe she will stay and maybe bring her son here. It ends with Tammy because Tammy is also the mother. She's the other mother in the group, and she has a son who's older. She has a son who's college age, and she says that I regret waiting this long to try and do something for myself. And if I could go back and do things differently, I would have dragged him as a baby to auditions. I would have. It's like, I would have done a little stuff for myself while being a mother. I regret not doing that. And I think it's something that Debbie needs to hear. Because Debbie's constantly feeling guilty for doing stuff for herself. And I think this idea of like, no, you are a big part of this show. You made this show. You're a producer. Stay and fight. Bring your son here and fight and be an important part. And don't let Bash just, have the win. Because a lot of what Debbie says earlier on as well is about how, men have it easier, that, no matter how hard she fights, like, Bash gets to make the rules, men get to make the rules, and don't realize how much easier they have it. And like, she's feeling this frustration, she's feeling this, she's a really funny moment actually when she's talking about, even when she's having sex with a young guy, she's like, I just want to smush their face into the ground. Like, it's really funny. She's letting out the rage. It's a good scene. And yeah, so I really like that. And then Debbie's side of it, of course, is that she tells Ruth's side of it is she tells Debbie about Sam saying that he's in love with her, and admits that she's both scared and excited about that being a thing, and she doesn't know what to do. And Debbie's like, well, just do it then. Go and be happy. And this keeps happening where I say we're finally kind of like touching upon, and I kind of love how this whole thing, this whole thing started with Ruth cheating on Debbie with his husband. That's not the right way to say that, but you know what I mean. And Ruth in this scene says, this is a whole part of your life that I don't like touching for reasons, but like, why don't you bring your son here? Like, I don't know how to fix all the problems, but that seems like the first one. And Debbie entertaining this advice and not like making any comments about it, it really does feel like we've come so far from their like rivalry back in season 1. And it feels like it's went very slow and natural through the show to this point where it doesn't feel forced, and it feels like we're at a natural place where they're kind of friends again. And, I don't know. I really like. I like the progression that's taken over the course of the show in a big way. So, and of course, the end of the episode is when they get back. Ruth goes up to Sam's room and he's left. He's checked out. So that's a cliffhanger. We'll see where that leads next episode. So. Other plots, Arthur and Junk Chain, but Yolanda. Thank you. It's been a couple of weeks. I did rewatch the episode for the record. I've seen this episode twice because it had been too long since I'd watched it. But Yolanda, we sort of delve into some stuff here where the Bitties, Stacey and Dawn are. Make a homophobic comment. They crack a joke about them maybe being more comfortable, having their heads in each other's crotches than the others are because of the relationship, and this clearly bothers Yolanda. And later on, she's lying with Arthur and kind of like try to make it clear, like, hey, like, those two maybe aren't your friends the way you think you are. Like, every so often, because you're gay, you're going to have people disappoint you, and you're going to realize who they really are, and you're going to have to kind of deal with that from time to time. And it turns into Arthur saying that she's not really sure if she is that word. She won't say the word gay. And Yolanda's like, what does that mean? It's like, what are you then? And she's like, I don't really know. And, Yolanda gets kind of like miffed about this and kind of turns over and says, I don't want to deal with a straight girl who doesn't know what she wants. And Arthur says, I didn't say that, implying that she does know what she wants. She wants her. And she's like, no, you did. And I'm of two minds about this scene because I like, on the one hand, obviously Yolanda's got some past experiences. Maybe she's been with someone who's doubted who they are before, and it's just like it's kind of ruined the relationship. But I was also wondering in this scene if this is also, I'm not sure how many of the other sexualities that we talk about today existed, or not existed, but were named in the 80s, shall we say, and were commonly spoken about. The idea of bisexuality, was that something that a term that people used in the 80s? I'm not sure, and I was wondering if this was either that or pansexuality, things like that. And I'm wondering if like is this actually Yolanda kind of misreading that Arthur might just actually not be strictly gay? Is she close-minded to that idea? And I'm not actually sure. I don't know where it's going with this, but I wanted to pose that possibility, because that's kind of the first thing I thought of, was that maybe she's just saying that no, she's not strictly gay. She's something else. But I don't know if that's just because, hey, I'm from 2019 and I think of that in a way that maybe people didn't think of in the 80s. I don't know. I feel like some of the terms we use now are a bit newer, but I don't know about all of them. So yeah. But what else do we have? We have a little bit of Rhonda Britannica sort of sticking up for Bash when they're cracking jokes about him, and it kind of turns into a joke again, but there's just a little bit of awkwardness where she's kind of sticking up for him. And later she has a scene with Carmen. Carmen is basically frustrated, and they have kind of a heart-to-heart, and she admits that she used to have a crush on Bash, but that's not really a thing anymore. She's not jealous or anything like that. They're good. Her and Bash are good friends. But she's pissed because ever since Rhonda left their room, because they used to be roommates, like everyone else always comes and stays with her when their roommates having sex, and they just assume that Carmen's free because she's the sexless one, as it were. And she's like, it sucks. Like, I don't want to be the sexless one. I want to, and and they're sort of joking about guys, and they're kind of bonding. And she kind of is attracted to Keith, Cherry's husband. And then the other small plot we have is of Tamay, who has to be told that she can't wrestle because it's an all 9 months. She can't take it, and Cherry tries to tell her this, and she's like, oh, maybe I can do something else. And it's actually Carmen who comes in and says, hey, I mean, how about you a lot of the wrestlers transition to do other things, like managing. And she's like, what, you mean like doing the books? And she's like, no, like managing as in like a manager who's around, on the outside of the ring, there to be a mouthpiece for one of the wrestlers. And it's like, hey, this is actually a pretty good idea. So we're going to see her transition into that role, and that's a really neat thing. So yeah, these small plots were fun. Well, the Arthur Yolanda one wasn't fun. That's not the right word for it. But they did some character things. All they were fun, or there were small little touching things. So this is actually a really impressive episode, and the vast majority of the characters in it get at least a little story arc, a little story beat. I think Stacey and Dawn suffer from just being there for the other plot, but also they're just generally random comic relief more than anything else. Whereas all the others have more of a plot. Some more than others, of course. Some of them just get a couple of little scenes that give them a little start and end. And then you've got Melrose and Jenni. And hey, can we just say, like, this is the most plot Jenni, I think, has ever really had. This is actually, it's certainly the most touching plot she's ever had. So I think it's great that some of the characters who maybe haven't had that much time in the past are starting to get to shine a little bit more. That's a really cool thing. So no, episode 6 of g.l.o.w season 3 is very good, and I like it. I know some people don't. I've seen some people speak negatively about this episode, and for me, it's a great character episode, and the touching moments hit for me. So no, I'm all right with more of this. So I will see you soon for episode 7. Very soon, I promise. And we'll have that up sometime in the next couple of days. But that's been episode 6. So let me know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get me on the Twitters at Wibble89 for me, for my own ramblings. You can get at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can, of course, support us over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and that goes a long way to ensure all the content keeps happening and expanding the content and so on and so on. You can also support us by rating the audio podcast on the podcast app you use, Apple Podcasts being the most common one, and give us a 5-star review or whatever. Helps us out a lot if you do that too. So thank you very much for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?